Another stop on our NHL-wide fantasy offseason breakdown arrives in La La Land on the latest episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We got to break down the future of these LA Kings. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You heard the music, and you know what time it is. It's time for the latest edition of your daily source for fantasy hockey news. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. You know what it is. Shout out to the everydayers holding us down, making us your first listen every single day. We see you and appreciate you. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The summer is heating up, and FanDuel is hooking up customers all summer long with a booster daily bonus. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Steele, we've been started on this league-wide fantasy breakdown. If you've missed any of the episodes, tap into the channel. Make sure you smash that follow button, subscribe. 5-star review means the world to both Steele and I. Plus, Steele, selfishly, I feel like you and I are getting a little bit of leg up on our own competition because we've been digging in to every single squad. Some pretty, some not so pretty. And I don't know your take on this Los Angeles Kings team. Doing my research last night, a little bit of reading this morning, it's somewhat hard for me to put my finger on where I think this team is going to finish in the standings. However, I'm looking at a couple of these players that I would be happy to have on my fantasy squad. Let's do our top 5. This offseason, though, as much as the LA Kings were quote-unquote busy, I don't know how you feel about all these additions, if you want to call them. Darcy Kuemper, Warren Foegele, Tanner Jeannot. I don't know how you feel about this situation for the Kings, but I am a little bit wary of where they're going to fall in the standings next season.
I like it a lot, and
Okay.
I actually really do like the Darcy Kuemper trade. You know, they get rid of Pierre-Luc Dubois after 1 year, signing him to that 8-year, $8.5 million contract. They offload that. I want to call it a mess because of what Pierre-Luc Dubois has done in his NHL career right now.
Yeah, it was
Look,
a mess.
I'm expecting a bounce back season from Pierre-Luc Dubois, but they still get rid of the contract after 1 year because of how lackadaisical his game has been so far. So they get rid of that. They get a number one goaltender who's won a Stanley Cup out of Darcy Kuemper. They kind of, again, I really like Cam Talbot with the LA Kings as well, but this is still a good situation for them. So I like Darcy Kuemper in the crease. I like that they bring in Foegele and Tanner Jeannot into the bottom 6 group. It brings the physicality more to an elevated level in that Western Conference and in their division right now. So this is still a playoff team for me. They get more physical, which they definitely need going up against the Edmonton Oilers and the likes of the Dallas Stars and more playoff teams in the Western Conference like we've seen. So I'm a fan of what they've done. We'll see where they land in the top 5 fantasy targets list. Darcy Kuemper could maybe be in there, maybe not. We'll have to find out in the future, in the near future. But number 1 off the list for the fantasy targets of the LA Kings, it's your boy. It's your boy, Adrian Kempe, who comes in at number 1.
Thank you.
This guy is going to be a 3rd-round draft pick, in my opinion, in next year's fantasy season. He's a peripheral savant. I'm continuing using that word this week, but I'll figure out a new word to use. But I love Adrian Kempe. I know you love Adrian Kempe.
Yeah.
What he brings to the table. 75 points in 77 games last year, plus 13, 246 shots. A guy who brings the physicality, like I mentioned, 112 hits. He brings it on the power play as well. You'd like to see him get some more power play goals, but he still had 27 power play points last season. And I think that can get up to 30-plus power play points if they can continue to mix and mingle on the top power play unit. So there's lots of fantasy options with this LA Kings team, but Adrian Kempe is the number 1 guy you're going to be targeting off the board. He's going to be going in the 3rd round. That's where I see him landing for me in this next upcoming draft.
Yeah.
Adrian Kempe, I know you've been talking about him for a long time now, and he's just been so great for the last few seasons.
Perhaps somewhat underrated, Steele, given the market he plays in fantasy circles, people know about him. But in terms of just the general hockey public, perhaps because the LA Kings usually in our Eastern Coast market, it's a late night start for a lot of these games for the LA Kings if you want to be catching some of their games. And I think Kempe flies under the radar, and he really shouldn't. He can do it all. What I love about his game is his physicality that you already alluded to. He uses his 6'2" frame to create. He can also skate very well and has a sneaky good shot. And you combined all of those things, Steele, 70 plus points is what I expect every single season from him. 75 last year falls right into that realm. I could see 80 points. Here's the thing with the LA Kings team before I get to my second pick in Kevin Fiala. Last year, this team was very good defensively. Allowed the third least goals in the NHL. Only the Jets and Panthers allowed less goals than the LA Kings last year. So maybe that plays into the Darcy Kuemper angle. He's coming into a very good defensive system. So maybe Darcy Kuemper does have a bounce back. We'll talk about him perhaps at the very end of this list. But Adrian Kempe is at number one. This LA Kings team, though, Steele, where they might struggle is to generate and score goals. And that's where the pressure is on their big guns that we'll talk about offensively. And Adrian Kempe at the top of that list at number one. Kevin Fiala, for me, falls in at number two, Steele. And I know the peripherals aren't exactly there like they are with Kempe in terms of hits. He still had 62 penalty minutes, 73 points, 225 shots on net. So for me, right after Adrian Kempe, it's got to be Kevin Fiala at number two. In my opinion, I see him right around that 70-point threshold, 220 plus shots. He's a valuable target that I would take a little bit down the draft board. But in my opinion, I'm really liking Kevin Fiala. Also, look at his last three seasons. 85 points in 82 games, 72 points in 69 games, and then another 82 full game slate and 73 points. So I'm feeling confident about what you've seen from him over the last couple of seasons as he's entered his prime here, 25, 26, 27. I think this is the Kevin Fiala that you can expect. Also, a pretty reliable two-way forward.
This is the one that hurt the most in the last few years with him leaving the Minnesota Wild, being traded and signing with the LA Kings. Look, this was a talented forward, and I wish that he remained with the Wild moving forward. He's got a very high contract, and I understand the direction they were going in, and it's very hard, again, to entice players to stay in Minnesota. I know what happened, but this one hurts a lot because of the last two seasons that he's performed under the LA Kings organization. 72 point, look, career high 85 points in his last year with Minnesota. He moves on to the LA Kings, back-to-back 70-plus point seasons, over 200 plus shots, like we said. 52 hits, 52 penalty minutes, 62 penalty minutes. This guy is a very great player, fantasy-wise. So, this is another player right behind Adrian Kempe. And he's not going to be taken as high in the third round, but fifth, sixth round, Kevin Fiala more than should be taken in right now. So that's where I have him landing. You're absolutely right. He's right there. He's in the second position off the board for the LA Kings. He still does it on the power play as well. 30 power play points last season, 225 shots, 67 hits, 28 blocks. This guy is an absolute stud in the offensive zone. Whether he's always playing in the top six group. He's on the first power play unit. He knows how to shoot the puck. He knows how to stick handle and get by defenders. He knows how to create room for himself to be available for his teammates or just get into a shooting position where he can fire that biscuit on the net. So Kevin Fiala comes in second off the LA Kings list. From here on out, this list gets a little bit more interesting.
For sure.
I'm not exactly sure who you go third. Mm-hmm. I think we have, I believe I know who you're going to be going third. So I hope we're the same here.
It might be a surprise for you still.
Okay. Maybe it's a surprise, but
we'll get to it.
Yeah. Adrian Kempe, number one, Kevin Fiala, number two, and we'll get to number three right after the break. 3, 4, and 5 right after the break. Maybe some potential targets as well outside the top 5.
Oh,
but those are the first two off the board for the LA Kings.
Kevin Fiala, also a former 11th overall draft pick, really just starting to mature. He can be a little bit streaky at times, Steele, and that's one of the things you got to have to deal with a team that overall last year struggled to score, 17th in scoring overall. They're going to have to be better. A new coach now entrenched there, getting rid of McClellan's old school 1-3-1 system might help the offense. It's going to help the rest of this episode that we roll through some more of our top targets. However, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. We love sports. We never want them to stop, and that's why all summer long, FanDuel is bringing that heat, hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every single day all summer long at FanDuel. Head over to FanDuel.com right now and start making the most out of your summer, betting on baseball, footy, and everything in between. Maybe a little bit of golf action still. You know, we like those links. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us Monday through Friday. Make sure you go check out Locked On Sports Today's YouTube channel. You can also find them on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. The team we talk about on today's episode, the Los Angeles Kings top 5 fantasy targets, maybe some potential players to target outside the top 5 as well, potential breakout players. Flip, we're on number 3. I'm handing it back over to you. Who do you have at number 3? I am very much ready for your answer here.
So, you know how much I love Anze Kopitar, and I badly wanted to have him in there at 3, and maybe that's the safe choice. But if you start reading into some of these angles that some people do, and the mileage on Anze Kopitar's body, the potential for Quinton Byfield to perhaps break out, what you saw from Quinton Byfield last year is starting to hint towards him being ready to do just that. Good Newmarket, Ontario boy. Look, Anze Kopitar, if you have him at 3, yourself steal, I'd be fine with that. It's the safer play. For me, personally, if this is the draft going down and I got the options between Kopitar, Byfield, Doughty, Kemper, and otherwise, I'm taking Quinton Byfield at number 3 and hoping this is the year that he breaks out. He's my breakout candidate on this team. I think that's an easy take. I'm going to go with the number 2 overall pick in the 2020 draft as my 3rd selection off the board. This one might be a little bit bold still, and it might be a little bit riskier than taking a guy in Kopitar who's just been steadily plugging along his whole career as an absolute, you want to talk about savants. There's a savant right there at both ends of the ice. 70 points last year and 74 the year before. I know I'm talking a lot about Kopitar considering Byfield is my number 3 category. Look, he is hard to deal with when he's at top speed. He's got a solid 6'5", 225-pound frame and all the trimmings of being a superstar in this league. So with all that said, and the new system for the new coach, you're buying into this physicality in the bottom 6. Maybe that creates some more room for a guy like Byfield who can skate like the wind. Byfield's in at number 3 steal, but it's riskier when you've got a guy like Kopitar who's been steady bringing 70 points, and Byfield's only touched 55 in his young career. However, the upside is far too enticing for me, and when you saw Byfield really settling in, scoring goal of the year candidates and otherwise, if he's on the board, he might be just a little bit too attractive offensively for me personally to pass up, so he's at number 3 for me.
I agree with you. I also have Quinton Byfield at number 3, even though you can go with the more consistent and safe option in Anze Kopitar. And
He's at 4 for me.
He has been a very steady player fantasy-wise and in the NHL, leading this LA Kings team for many years now. He's been durable. He's only missed 2 games in the last 3 seasons. Let me correct that. 2 games in the last 3 seasons. 2 games in the last 4 seasons as well, going back to COVID year at the same time. So he's a very durable player. He's got 50 points, 67 points, 74, 70. Again, very consistent player, very safe player to get. He plays a very two-way game. That's why he's been in the Selke conversation.
2-time Selke winner.
Numerous times, 2-time Selke winner. I know you like to bring those facts up.
Yes, sir.
However, I will say this, and this is why I'm going with Quinton Byfield over Anze Kopitar. A big difference is the age gap for me. Obviously, Kopitar is getting up to 37 years old. Quinton Byfield, 22. No matter what, Kopitar is still getting his own. But when you look at what has been the trend over the last 4 seasons. He's slowly getting less and less ice time. He went from 21 minutes and 11 seconds of average ice time down to 20 minutes and 46 seconds, down to 20 minutes and 18 seconds, down to 19 minutes and 39 seconds. The trend has continued to go down over 2 minutes over the last 4 seasons as his age continues to get up. Also with the peripheral categories as well, was 210 shots. He had 210 shots 3 seasons ago, down to 169 2 seasons ago, now down to 133. So even though he's getting 70 plus points the last 2 seasons, the peripheral categories are also taking a trend in the wrong direction, while Quinton Byfield has been heading in the right direction, while also, getting his first full season of NHL hockey under him this last year with 55 points in 80 games. He had 42 penalty minutes. He was pretty decent on the power play for the time that he was on there. A 12.4 shooting percentage, up to 161 shots, 66 hits, 19 blocks. I love the peripheral categories, the trend of him going in the right direction. And again, I know Anze Kopitar is the safer pick. It makes more sense, but I'm with you. He's the breakout candidate for me as well. He comes in at number 3, and then Anze Kopitar at number 4.
You also can't help but feel when you're looking at Byfield's numbers, Steele, especially the shots and the hits, how they've been creeping, and the confidence that you're now starting to see. When he had 66 hits last year, I'm comfortable with him reaching triple digits this season. So now if you're looking at, let's say he just naturally progresses and you're looking at maybe 65 to 70 points, 100 hits, 200 plus shots, it's starting to become clear. And I know all of those are projections and you and I's opinions, but that's the way it's trending. And if it does go that way, then I think it is a slam dunk that Quinton Byfield is at number 3. I'm intrigued to talk a little bit to you about some of these new additions they brought in. What's it going to mean for the back end? Maybe another target off the list. And of course, the back end, Kemper, Doughty, some other options in this top 5 list. Let me just leave it at this, though, Steele, before we get to quote unquote break and wrap this bad boy up. The LA, I was going to say Dallas Stars. That was weird. The LA Kings were really good defensively and a really hard team to play against. The power play was okay, 12th in the league. The penalty kill was the second best in the NHL, killing penalties at 84.6%. Only the Carolina Hurricanes killed penalties at a better clip. This team is going to be good defensively. Are they going to be able to, with some of those new additions, get the offense going? That's the question. And so is, what does Darcy Kuemper do? But let's talk about that right after the break, because you know me and goaltender, Steele, he might just be sliding in at number 5 there because of how important I think they are. However, let's have a chat about it.
We will have a chat about it. There's a few options out there for the number 5 position that I would love to get the insight from my co-host Flip Livingstone. You know, we got to break it down for everybody out there. We also got to break it down for me sometimes, because it can be a tricky situation at who comes in and gets into the number 5 position. But that and more after the break, all coming up next. Once again, thank you so much for sticking around and making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button. Make sure you also go check out the Locked On Sports Today's YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button. They're doing wonderful things out there, covering all the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering every single league. You can also find them on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Flip, Quinton Byfield at number 3. We talk about Anze Kopitar and what he still brings to the game at 37 years of age for this Los Angeles club as well. He comes in at number 4, even though we could easily see him being the number 3 guy off the board for the LA Kings. He still brings so much to the table. Anze Kopitar, I do really feel like he's going to fall somewhere 8th or 9th round, in my opinion. I think that's where the numbers are trending for him. So that means Quinton Byfield will be just above him, probably in the 7th round, or a few picks above him in the 8th. Number 5 position, though, there's 3 options, and I know you really like Drew Doughty.
Yep.
I know you traded for him, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Or
I
you
traded him.
You traded
Actually,
him.
You're right. Sorry, I got him and the pick for Woll for Johnny T and a second.
Yes, I believe. So you did get him in a trade.
Yeah, actually moved on from him as well. I moved him later in the year. That might have been a bit of a mistake, however. So hit me with your take here at 5.
5, look, there's 3 options. There's Drew Doughty, which I know you like. There's Darcy Kuemper, the new guy in the blue paint for this Los Angeles team who did struggle last season in his second year with the Washington Capitals. But there's also a guy that you and I both like in Trevor Moore. And I'm going to go with Trevor Moore at the number 5 position.
I respect that.
It might be a little bit more risky.
Yes.
Over Drew Doughty or Darcy Kuemper, but I really do like what Trevor Moore brings to the offensive game of this LA Kings group.
Yeah.
He's still playing in the top 6 with Phillip Danault and Kevin Fiala, who you and I both like right now. Especially now that Victor Arvidsson is gone, he's going to remain in that top 6, in my opinion. So I really like that second line of Phillip Danault and Kevin Fiala because you've got the skill up front, obviously from Kevin Fiala on a consistent basis now. But Phillip Danault can also bring it in the offensive zone, 47 points, 78 in 78 games. But Trevor Moore having a career year really makes me think about what he can do going into next season. At 30 years of age, he's going to, again, this is a guy who's really just blossoming with this new club of his over the last 5 seasons, I guess. Career high 57 points in 82 games. He's been in his prime now for the last couple of seasons, and you can see it when he plays in the top 6 group. 57 points, first time in his career, 31 goals in 82 games, played the full season. Over 240 plus shots last year. He played his most average time on ice with just under 18 minutes of average ice time this last year. 92 hits, 58 blocks. He was pretty decent on the power play when he got there. Only 7 points, but I expected him to get some more power play time on the second unit. Maybe he creeps up into the first unit.
I could see that,
depending on what happens, but. I'm going to go with Trevor Moore. It's very close with Drew Doughty and Darcy Kuemper. I know you could. It's easy to go with the goaltender, and I do expect a bounce back season from Darcy Kuemper after only 30 games played with 13, 14, and 3 record and an .890 save percentage. He struggled in Washington.
Not pretty.
Happens to the best of them. It wasn't pretty. Happens to the best of them sometimes, but I still like what he brings fantasy wise. Him and Drew Doughty would come in at 6 and 7 for me, actually tied at 6. I like it, again, interchangeable.
Yeah, it's close.
I got to go with Trevor Moore, my boy at number 5 off the LA Kings list here.
Totally respect that. In terms of Kuemper, you might be able to get this guy at an absolute steal of a round. And when you're looking into all the defensive metrics that I keep bringing up, good penalty kill, stingy defensive play, keeping those goals down. I know overall save percentage, they were up there in the league. You have a good, steady, reliable backup in David Rittich. I'm not going to talk about fantasy value or what he is as a goaltender, but Big Save Dave is a solid backup that if Kuemper does go streaky like he can do, and you got to throw Rittich in there for Kuemper to get his head right, maybe this is the goaltending tandem. Look, Rob Blake knows what he's doing, and I think this team also, Brant Clark, I had to throw his name out there. I think he was a former 8th overall draft pick in the 2021 draft. Yes, he was. Small sample size, but that's a keeper dynasty name that I had to just chuck at the board for you, Steele. And let me spit this out. It's Drew Doughty at 5 for me. I think you knew where I was going. Kuemper and Trevor Moore, very close. I would actually just personally, I would slide Trevor Moore in there ahead of Kuemper just slightly because of all those things that you just said. However, they're all very close. Look, Drew Doughty, because I got a little riskier with Byfield higher up in my list, I'm going with the safer play here, the filling out the peripheral play, 142 block shots, 109 hits, 44 penalty minutes, and then you chip in with 50 points and 135 shots. I'm really loving Drew Doughty's value as maybe my 4th or 5th D-man. Very happy to have him on my blue line. And in terms of Kuemper, Steele, if you do able somehow to like get him as your third goaltender, that's a really good option to rotate in with if you get two studs. I know it's probably hard to do that. In a lot of deeper leagues, it might be impossible. Those are the angles I'm liking. This team is going to be very much in the mix for a top 3 spot in their division. Is the offense going to get going, though? I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but that's what it's going to come down to for this team's success. And in terms of breakout fantasy, they got to get that offense going, and I'm looking right at Quinton Byfield, Fiala, and Adrian Kempe as the top 3 studs.
Yeah, you got to love as well. This is 14 straight seasons for Drew Doughty, still getting over 25 and a half minutes of average ice
Shout
time.
out a
His
good Guelph
deployment-
Storm alumni.
Yeah, his deployment at 35 years of age, or soon to be 35 years old for Drew Doughty, still getting over 25 minutes of average ice time with the LA Kings. He's been a very durable player for the most part, the last 4 seasons even. I know he had that 39-game season. That 39-game season back in 2021, 2022. But for the most part, over the last 4 years, he's only missed 1 game if you take away that 1 year where he missed over 50%. So Drew Doughty's been a very durable guy, back-to-back 50-plus points. I can't disrespect and I can't hate at him coming at number 5 because it could easily be him with the peripheral categories, 20 power play points, and like I said, 14 straight seasons of over 25 and a half.
Finished 11th in Norris voting once again.
Once again, Drew Doughty is getting it done. Again, another player who seems to be aging like fine wine. Maybe not looks-wise, but fantasy-wise.
Yeah, he's banged up.
He's banged up. Somebody's got to get him to the dentist. I know he might not like it, but he definitely needs some new teeth in there. But Drew Doughty comes in at number 5 for Flip. Trevor Moore for myself at number 5 off the LA Kings board. There's a few players, if you want to quickly talk about them, Warren Foegele, Tanner Jeannot. I do think they are fantasy relevant to a degree towards the back end of this draft. I actually do really think that Warren Foegele has the potential to be like a bench player or your last player off the board in the draft.
Philip Deneau's a solid week-to-week fill-in as well.
Philip Deneau is
also,
Philip Deneau is as well a great pickup from week to week, or as that last bench player, last forward taken in the draft. So there's definitely a few more options out there off this team. Philip Deneau being one of them. Warren Foegele for me is in there as well. And then really Mikey Anderson maybe, or Vladislav Gavrikov off the back end if you need some help. If you need some help in the defensive area, but it's really only Drew Doughty you're going to be looking at off the board higher up in this draft. But those are the options. Those are the top 5 fantasy targets for the LA Kings, and some players to keep an eye for in the back end of the draft. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button. Continue to go check out Locked On Sports today. They've launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. You can also find them on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. They're here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On. So make sure you go subscribe and check it out. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with your bets this summer, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.